I'm Wes.
I'm Mike.
And we're in the Darcys. I think that the whole idea behind releasing 2 albums quickly and for free was that we were a new band, and the idea of putting out an album for $9.99 on iTunes, just the ability to push it was really small, and the traditional release didn't make any sense for us. And so you put out Asia, and it does 10,000 downloads in a day or 2 days, and it's just, there's no way that record would have gone that far for us. And so we just wanted to build a fan base, or hopefully build a fan base, and give people the ability to listen to the record, and then, you know, farther down the line, hopefully they're still fans, and then they'll come to the next record.
The first record and Asia are kind of, as much as they are real records, they're projects leading up to this third record.
I sort of see them as like really robust singles, you know? It's like, this is what we did 3 years ago, and it broke, and we mixed it 3 times, and 4 times, and 5 times, and it took, you know, 3 years, and then this is what we did in the time between making that record and potentially breaking up. We made Asia, and then this is where we are now. And I think that Asia was a really important bridge between the 2 records, and if we hadn't have made Asia, I think we would have just stalled as a band. I think that that's sort of what it was about, was sort of forward progress. And so it's become this sort of musical bridge, and it allowed us to embrace drum machines and synthesizers and all these things that we weren't doing on the self-titled, and to sort of experiment with that musically before we jumped into, you know, making a musical left turn or something like that on the 3rd record. So as far as making the 3rd record, we've demoed about 30 songs for it, and we demo sort of at a higher end. We did Asia at home. We recorded ourselves, and that's sort of the way we demo as well. We sort of try to see the songs as far through as possible. And we wanted to clean up the sound. Sort of the self-title's really dense, and we wanted to maybe extract some of the key sounds of that self-titled record and hold on to them. And then the other things that sort of also were important to that record, just totally get rid of them and fill the record with something else. Maybe it's really lush harmonies, or it's like a really strong like drum and bass sort of groove. And so I think we've matured a bit, and so we're not just whiling out on guitar solo or guitar sounds. Like, it's just not like pedals and noise and noise and noise. Though we did do that a little bit on Asia, but I think that it's a little bit more matured and restrained a bit, which I think is helping the song breathe a little bit more. Yeah. The melody.
I think with the new record, the noisy parts will be much more thought out and bigger, but then the restraint there'll be bigger,
but they'll happen less. I think you're gonna get them, and when they happen, it's just gonna be just like balls to the walls,
yeah.
And then they're gonna be gone. And I think that the self-titled record, it sort of happens every 2 songs. It's sort of these wall of noise sort of ideas, and I think that was a big part of what we were doing, but we want to steer a little bit away from that. And then when we sort of go back to it, it's just going to be this fond memory, and we're just going to take it to the extreme. So, you know, you learn so much, and it's really difficult for us to put out records that we sort of conceived 3 years ago, and they don't really sort of define where we are as a band. And I think that what I'm really excited about with this record is that we can put out a record relatively quickly after recording it, and so it will at least to some extent capture where we are as a band. And I think that the other thing I really did learn is that the sound and the songs I'm really proud of them, and I really like those records, but they're not the most fun. You know, there's not a lot of like pop hits, and as we tour with bands like Bombay Bicycle Club and things like that, you see with the response to these, you know, these upbeat sort of fast tempo songs. And so by no means are we sort of embracing the pop structure, but I think that the tempos come up a little bit, and I think that there's a little bit more room for us to enjoy ourselves on stage instead of just, you know, like Mike's just running around from keyboard to pedal, and he's like a blur when we're up there. And I think that we're trying to enjoy it a little bit more, and hopefully that will have an effect on the audience as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more about the groove than the like explosion of noise sound and all that stuff. We're kind of getting more into the pocket, exploring kind of the 90s like neo soul, just, you know, I hate to say it,
but Voodoo, like,
yeah, D'Angelo records and Lauryn Hill and stuff like that. That's been a huge influence for us.
The thing I'm most proud of about the band these days is that we haven't really made any efforts to alter the set for maybe a younger crowd. If there's, you know, some of these shows are all ages, and we kind of just thought, well, why would we change what we do to accommodate, you know, 6 people that aren't going to like the record when they hear it? So we just go up there, and I think we're pretty true to the record live. I mean, there's only 4 of us, so it's a lot to bite off. But I think, you know, we do a lot of live loops and things like that, and we try to fill out the songs and play the sort of most essential parts. And then we just, I think sometimes we just like beat these kids up with sound, and I think they just leave. They're like, their ears are ringing. They're like, I think that was amazing, but I'm gonna buy the record and I'll figure it out at home. And so I think I don't know if they've changed so much. I think that they have a little bit more gusto. They're a little bit stronger in that sense. I think the record's a little bit more timid than the live set, but more or less it's pretty true to what we've done. Taking on Steely Dan was a nightmare, and I didn't realize that going in. But Mike hated. He just wanted to destroy the record from what I remember.
Yeah, coming at that record was weird because Wes and Jason had grown up with it. It was a very large part of their lives. Their fathers raised them on that record,
which is not a good thing to do to your child. Looking back, it's bad.
I didn't have the same experience, so I hated it. Even when we were recording it, a lot of we all kind of came at it with different ideas. And the few ideas I came at it with were kind of like, I'm going to do something completely different. I'm going to try and destroy it, and then I'm going to see what they think about it, and then we're going to figure it out.
Mike was really good at destroying the record, but then we sort of we left it in pieces, and then Jason and I had to build it back up again, and we had to sort of figure out where the Darcys sat in that project, and not just. I think the worst thing we could have done was just cover the record, right? And so we sort of built it up in our own light, and it became sort of, you know, like there's a lot of kids that have no idea who Steely Dan is, and like they buy Asian and they think it's Aha. They think the record's called Aha, and they think it's our record, and which I think is really great. And it's starting to feel more and more like our record. I think now that we play it more.
None of us went into it trying to recreate the record. I like to think of the record as we kind of wrote these new Darcys songs and kind of stuck Steely Dan melodies and the lyrics on top of it. Because at the end of the day, they're very different arrangements. Like, I listen to the Steely Dan record and I kind of forget that, oh yeah, we do that version too, like that song, because it's really different.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on. And I think that I remember going into the project initially, and Jason and I were sitting there going, well, we've heard this record probably 10,000 times each, and we know all of the lyrics, so maybe we just won't listen to it ever again, and we'll record the record just from memory, and we'll just make this sort of Steely Dan record as if, you know, we'll just make up the lyrics we forget, and we'll just make it this sort of art project. And I think that we achieved that sort of 60 to 80 or 75% of that record, and then, you know, the other 25% was you know, bringing the two together. And I think that the one thing we focused on, and this sort of talks to the sort of destruction of the record, was that we saw a polarity between the lyrics, that sort of darkness, or the potential to see a darkness in the lyrics, and the mood, sort of these breezy pop songs. And I think that, I don't know if it's irony, but the way Steely Dan did it was definitely on purpose, and they did it so well, but we thought that there was availability to sort of pursue these alternate versions that sort of came closer to the darkness of the lyrics, and that's what we really wanted to do. And I think that we also gave ourselves a really good out where we could say, well, it was just this art project we did between records, so if people hated it, you know, we could sort of, like, well, it's just a thing we did. But I'm really proud of it, and I'm really happy. I almost like it more than the self-titled, so. But again, I would never do it again. I don't think. When making the Josie video, you know, we threw around a lot of ideas, and our manager, Aaron, sort of had something he fully realized, and he really wanted to pursue it, and we were very happy to let him go with it. And I think that one of the big questions when doing the song Josie, which was one of the last songs that we recorded on the record, was we really looked at the lyrics of the song and then tried to pretend that we'd never heard a version of it. And then sort of we ended up with this dark, sort of brooding song. And I think that what we did was we questioned, because on the surface you hear like, oh, this girl she's coming home and everyone's excited, but if you really read the lyrics, like there's like talks of gang fights and, you know, shining the battle apple and things like that, and we just saw this darkness, and then it was, who is Josie, and she could be anyone, and maybe, you know, we're missing that sort of in our day-to-day, and the way that sort of we objectify women or just sort of lose them in our culture or in our communities. And so I think we wanted to create a video where we could, in a sense, direct them or give them a space and then let them do their own thing in that space. And we wanted them to sort of not act, but just be who they are in that space and sort of feel at that space. And I think that that's really great because it's almost like the camera wasn't rolling, because there's so many honest, sort of genuine moments where these girls just were in these shots. And I think that that's what's engaging about it, because really there's just some girls in a music video, but it engages me every time I watch it. And I think that you can start to see like a narrative start to grow in the video and things like that. So I think that's what we went after. The lyrics are something that we've been focusing on a lot, and they've gone through a lot of revisions on the new record. I think that that's something that I think we're most concerned about. Something that we want to be relatively airtight, which is difficult to say because they're not going to be. But I do think that we're expanding sort of our view on the world, and it's less about being young and sort of having fun and being out there and driving across the country and all these sort of simple but essential emotions, and going beyond that. And I think that the Josie video was a really good sort of step in that direction. And I think that in all of the charm and a bit of the up tempo in the new record, I think there's also going to be our own sort of darkness that we're going to bring to the record. There's sort of reality of how it is to be 25 in this world, and I think it pokes through, and hopefully in the same way that Steely Dan did, we can disguise it just enough that it's not it's just a difficult listen or it's going to drag you down. But I do think it's going to show up, and I'm okay with that. I think those are the records that I like. I don't want to hear about pizzas and babes, personally.
We want to kind of write stuff that we're going to stand behind for at least 10 years, I think.
I've been surprised when playing these sets that there hasn't been, I don't think there's any songs that have been cut because we just can't stomach playing them live. And I think that part of it is we push the songs in a lot of ways, and they're very intricate, and there's a lot going on stage at any given moment, so it's not it's not like somebody's just strumming a guitar and just well, when does it change? And because it's so intricate and there's so much going on, I think that it gives us a little bit of room to continuously enjoy it, because I think there's always that potential for failure live, because if your loop doesn't come on or whatever it is, your vocal pedal is not picking up your guitar, and then you're at a key. There's always that sort of disaster moment. I think that's what makes it exciting. I think that we're working hard to do the same with these new songs, and we're definitely biting off a little more than we would choose a 4-piece. But I think that what'll be fun after recording the record is figuring out how we're going to do it live, and I think that it's going to see a lot of gear and a lot of samples and things like that. But I think that I think we would rather be out there sweating and working the whole set than just up there to try to enjoy a sing along. I think that we want to be giving it everything we have, and then we can enjoy it after we get off stage. I think that as you tour in a band and you travel from place to place, you arrive in cities at the same time, in the venues at the same time, and they all look the same, and the hotels look the same, and you sort of lose your sense of place in the world. You don't know, it could be Tuesday or Saturday, and you could be in Portland or London, and it doesn't make a difference to you. And I think that I always thought of myself as a solitary person, and I learned over the course, especially over the course of the last 2 weeks, when we had a bit of a run-in with a semi that took part of our car off, and we thought, there was a moment where I think it wasn't how are we going to get out of this, but it was who's going to survive this. And there was just, I don't know how, but karma kicked us just enough off the side of the road that we could escape it. And I think that I learned that we all sort of have, we began to rally around each other and support each other and support each other's people, and I never thought that would be the case. And we've really sort of set ourselves aside as players and things like that, so that maybe Mike's playing Jason's guitar part, and maybe Jason loses the fun guitar part, but it's for the good of the band, it's for the good of our friendship, it's for the good of progress. And I think that I was really proud of us, and especially we lost the singer and we lost a record 3 times. And it just seems so dark, and the sort of the internal support has been amazing for us. And I was really I realized that recently, when we got out of the van and sort of high-fived each other that we were still here, that's become so important to us.